For several months now, really since the beginning of the Biden administration, maybe even earlier, conservatives and Republicans have been emphasizing the need to modify or repeal Section 230. This is the section that gives special legal protection to digital platforms. It treats these digital platforms kind of like the phone company, or perhaps even like the post office. The post office delivers the mail, but it's not responsible for what's in the mail. The phone company is a platform for you to communicate with others, but the phone company is not responsible for what is said over the phone. And it is this legal protection, this crucial protection, that enables these digital companies to function. Because if not, they would be like a newspaper publisher, or they would be liable for the content of what appears on their platforms. And so they have been relying on this protection. Now, Republicans had a chance to modify, if not take down, Section 230 when Republicans had the House and the Senate and the presidency. But our team did not do that, with very painful consequences, because now it's kind of funny to hear people like Lindsey Graham, I'm really getting serious about Section 230. I mean, how pathetic is that? Now he gets serious. Now he wants to do something. So at the very point when you have lost your opportunity, you're now full of conviction and vigor, and you're getting your, arm to the wheel. Now, remarkably, the Democrats have started talking about modifying Section 230. And here's where the plot really thickens. Amy Klobuchar, Minnesota senator, has introduced a bill that would in fact create an exception to Section 230. The Biden administration has been talking about getting rid of Section 230. Here's a statement by the Biden communications director. This is White House Communications Director Kate Bedingfield. She goes, yeah, we're reviewing that. And certainly they should be held accountable, meaning the digital platforms should be held accountable for the content that they allow or that they feature. Now, what are Klobuchar and Biden getting at? Because clearly they're not trying to modify Section 230 to promote free speech, right? Or to eliminate censorship, right? And the answer is, of course, they're not trying to do those things. In fact, they're trying to do the exact opposite. So here's Amy Klobuchar's bill. And what it would do, it's essentially, it carves out a kind of exception to Section 230, a public health exception. Essentially, it says that when it comes to a, quote, public health emergency, HHS, the Health and Human Services Department, gets to determine what constitutes misinformation and what doesn't. And these digital platforms would be forced, essentially, to conform to the rules and guidelines established by HHS. And everything else would have to be restricted or banned. So what you're getting at here, very creepy, is the Democrats are using their leverage over Section 230. Remember, they have the House. They have the Senate. They have the presidency. They probably can modify Section 230 if they want to. And they're talking about modifying it in the direction of forcing more censorship. So the exact same provision, Section 230, is targeted by Republicans to promote free speech and targeted by Democrats to accelerate and increase the magnitude of censorship. It's very clear that for the Biden people, the motivation is exactly the same. They want to control what they call misinformation, but who gets to define misinformation? After all, if you think about it, we have two major political parties, and by and large, each party considers the other one to putting out one heck of a lot of misinformation. They're misleading the American people. This is what political debate is all about, so the American people can sort out what is true from what is false, what is misinformation from what is merely information. And so the Democrats here are, as I say, using their muscle over Section 230 for a nefarious purpose. Now, the question becomes, hey, Dinesh, do you want to see Section 230 completely eliminated? And my answer is, when I think about it, no. Why? Because if you actually made digital platforms liable for all their content, then they would essentially ramp up their censorship to unprecedented levels. Why? Because they couldn't possibly afford to have any material on there that would make them liable. They would essentially be censoring people right and left. They would have to review all content to make sure, well, this isn't slanderous, this isn't libelous, this isn't going to get us into any legal trouble. So the good news is, in some ways, these platforms would destroy themselves. They would cease to have this kind of monopoly power, which I think is great. The bad news, however, is that we would actually cease to have a real public square, because you would have massive censorship going on across the board. So really what we want is something quite different, I think. And that is, we want a society in which these platforms are like the post office. I don't mean run by the government, of course. What I mean is that the post office is content neutral. You can say whatever you want, put it in the mail. It's your statement. It's not the post office speaking, it's you. But that's the point. The post office doesn't get to regulate what you say. The post office is a neutral platform to that degree. And the same is true with the phone company. The phone company doesn't intervene in your phone calls, doesn't ban you, once you've paid your bill, you're fine. You can say whatever you want on the phone. You're responsible for what you say. So it's this model of content neutral platforms that the Republicans, I think, need to get behind, need to put before the American people in the next elections, and say, in effect, if you want a free society and you want to be able to use this new technology for freedom rather than for repression, this then is the way to do that.